Hey everyone, welcome to today's lesson. My name is Wes. This is Interactive English, and if this is your first time here, this channel, it's all about just trying to help you practice and improve your English skills. Please write to me in the chat. Tell me your name, where you're from, or write to me in the comments because it's always great to hear from new people. I love it when people are able to find our channel and they just want to improve their English skills. And we try to do that in a variety of ways: vocabulary, pronunciation, grammar, which is about today's lesson. So in today's lesson, it is a bit of a grammar lesson. I'm just going to talk to you about two words, all right? And those words are the following. I'm going to talk to you about to and enough. And we're going to compare these two words. We're going to practice them. And I'm also going to teach you some very common and useful phrases that include these words, which is a way to then help you build your vocabulary. So I think that the grammar should be a little easier for you to understand. I hope that it's easier for you to follow. But if you're even looking for something a little more advanced, I think that some of those phrases and expressions at the end are useful, that maybe you will learn some new expressions. So I want to just give a quick shout out to some of you that are here with me today. Lolly, hello, great to see you. Nekla, Andre, Gertrude, Sonia, Kareem, hello. Sleepwalker, Gosia, thank you guys for joining me. As we go through the lesson, I am going to ask you guys to participate and to practice writing some sentences. And if I see some good ones, I will read them out. So let's begin with talking about these words individually. So let's first look at to. And if you're going to use this word, it's an adverb. It's going to indicate a degree. And basically, it's saying that you have something more than what is needed. All right, it's like too much, it's more than what's needed. And I gave you some example sentences here, which I will read to you in just a moment. And these are just some to give you an idea of how it's used in context. But again, if you guys have some sentences using to, write them in the chat or write them in the comments. This is what Interactive English is all about, getting you guys to actually practice while you are listening to these lessons. So for example, I gave you let's just look at these first two sentences. He can't eat it all. It's too much food. Or the next one, I said, I hate driving because there are too many cars on the road. So in this case, we're talking about using it with too much, too many. All right, it's commonly used when you want to say that there is too much of something. If you're talking about a non-count noun, too much food, it's more than what's needed. As well as count nouns, there are too many cars. We have more cars than we need on the road, and because of that, it just creates a lot of traffic. So that is the first point I wanted to make with to. Too much, too many. We hear it used quite often with these count and non-count nouns. Or the next one, the water is too cold to go for a swim. If we have an adjective that we want to intensify and say it's more, it's excessive, too cold, too hot, too fast, too slow. Or another one like, makes me think of the movie Lethal Weapon. If you guys have seen it, one of the famous lines in that, Danny Glover keeps saying, I'm too old for this. You're too old for something. You feel like you can't keep up. You you have more years than one needs in order to do something. You're too old for it. So when you're talking about to, you indicate a degree. Now, excellent, Lolly, I'm too young for this. Excellent, perfect. Outside, it's too hot for running. That's true. And today, it's pretty hot in Budapest. So you could say, yeah, it's too hot to go for a run outside. Now, I want to teach you some other meanings for to, real quickly, because it can also mean like in addition, or like also if somebody says, like this first example, Wes likes pizza, and another person says, well, me too. Basically, they're saying, I also like this thing. I also like pizza. Wes likes pizza, me too. So in that case, it means more in addition or also. It can also mean like very completely in the context of like too pleased. And I'd say that is a useful collocation. So, for example, we say, she wasn't too pleased with the performance. She was not very happy with this performance. So, in this case, I think it's used more, you could think as a collocation, you're not too pleased with something. And I would also say it's used more as a negative, in which case you're trying to say that you're not very happy about something, like I'm not too pleased with the result, or I'm not too pleased with the performance. So that's a useful collocation if you want to use to mean like very, like too pleased. You're not too pleased with something. Or I think, which is even maybe less common, to show surprise. And the sentence like, I can't believe the puzzle was solved, and by a child too. And I think in this case, you're showing that surprise the same way you could say, and by a child nonetheless. Like, it's surprising that the child solved the puzzle, but you could use to indicate surprise in this manner. So let's see some other good sentences. Sloan, it's too late. I don't know where you are, but perhaps for some of you right now, it is too late. What else do we got? Some other sentences. Because yeah, I am too hungry to concentrate. Yes, if you are too hungry, it may be difficult to concentrate. Perfectly. It's too hot in India. Excellent. So when you're talking about too, you're saying that it's more than what's needed. That there is. It's too. You could say again, too much, too many of something. I go back to those. I think it's used quite often. Let's look at enough, because enough also indicates a degree. But in this case, if you're talking about enough, I think of the word sufficient. You have the right amount of something, that it's sufficient, and there is enough. So now try to think of some sentences using enough. If you think of a good one, write it in the chat, write it in the comments. Always practice. I think it's the great way. It's a great way to improve. So here are some of my example sentences using enough. I think a common phrase somebody might say, like, we don't have enough time. There is not a sufficient amount of time to do something, or maybe to go somewhere, and somebody might just say, look, we don't have enough time. We don't have enough time to do this. Or in this sentence, he needs to earn enough money to buy a car. So in this case, you want to get a sufficient amount of money. You want to get at least the right amount of money in order to do something, which in this case is to buy a car. He needs to earn enough money. Or I could say she's smart enough to figure it out. She has the right amount of intelligence in order to solve some problem or figure it out, like you're smart enough to do something. Or this last case where we really talk about a number, there are 10 sandwiches, and you say, well, that should be enough. That is sufficient for if you're going on a picnic, or maybe you're having some type of party and you have 10 people and there's 10 sandwiches, you say that should be enough. That is the right amount. So let's see, we're going to get to some phrases a little later. So Masron says, there are enough people here, I think. I would say, yeah, you can, for these live lessons, I always want more and more people. I'd say you could never have enough people in these live lessons. So Lala said, listen, excellent. We're using both. It's not too difficult for me. It's easy enough. Perfect. So again, I think the grammar, it should be a little easier to follow. And that's what I want to practice a little bit right now. And then we'll get into some of those expressions, because I saw somebody was asking me about different expressions that people might use with to and enough. So the reason why people would, I think even in grammar class or at school, the reason why we tend to learn these two words at the same time is because of that they indicate a degree, that to is more than what is needed, and enough you have well, it's the right amount. So I could say when talking about to, I hope the lesson, it's not moving too fast, or too slow. I hope it's it's the right speed for everyone. I know sometimes because these live lessons are a bit longer, people might think they move a little too slow. But again, I like to try and I try to move at a pace that is comfortable for maybe most people. Enough. Again, you know that something, it's the right amount, it's sufficient, and I could say I hope I'm speaking slow enough so that you easily understand what I'm saying. And I think I do tend to talk a bit slower. I hope I'm not talking too slow, but I'm speaking slow enough, the sufficient amount so that you can easily understand what I'm talking about. So these are the reasons why I think we focus on these two words together. So let's practice this a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some sentences, and I just want you to fill in the blank. Are you going to use to or enough? And I've tried to make them a little tricky, but I know you guys are smart enough, I think, to figure this out. So let's look at the first one. They've got way time on their hands. All right. What would you say? All right. What would you use to finish that? They've got way time on their hands. Is it enough or too much? All right. I hope that you saw this. It was a little easier, that you knew right away that we're talking about time. Time is non-countable. It is a non-count noun. So in that case, you would say they've got way too much time on their hands. And this, again, this is an expression that you may hear people use from time to time, that you have too much time on your hands. And what that means is that you have too much time available. And often I think it would be used if you're describing somebody who maybe they're a little lazy, or they just don't have enough to do right now. It could be with work or anything that's going on in their life, and you could say they have way too much time on their hands. So you can use that expression to say that somebody has too much time available. The next one is, I can't believe they're dating. He's to be her father. What do you think? I can't believe they're dating. He's to be her father. He's old enough to be her father, or he's too old to be her father. What do you guys think? So I can't believe they're dating. I'm trying to give you a little hint there, kind of building in the context of what you'd want to say. I can't believe they're dating. He's to be her father. All right. I hope that, because, again, you understood that context of somebody's dating, I'm trying to indicate a little bit of surprise. So in that case, old enough. In that case, if you have an older man dating a younger woman and somebody says, well, I can't believe they're dating, he's old enough to be her father. He has a sufficient amount of years that mathematically he could be this person's father. Excellent. So I think you guys are rocking that. Perfect. Gosia, Rod, excellent. Hello, what's up? Aman, perfect. Aiden, yes. So let's continue. I have a couple more, and then we'll talk about those expressions to help you perhaps build your vocabulary a little bit more. So in this case, how would you complete this sentence? And this is also a bit of and you could consider this an expression in English. Somebody says, oh, you're, what would they say? How would they finish that statement? Oh, you're what? Oh, you're kind enough. Or, oh, you're too kind. What do you think? And this is something that maybe you've heard, probably if you're watching a TV show or movie. What would you say? Oh, you're kind enough. Or, oh, you're too kind. Yeah, so I think, again, this is where I feel like exposure is important when you're watching things, movie, TV shows. Yes, and you would say, the answer is B, oh, you're too kind. All right, and what they mean by this expression is that if you're trying to kind of flatter somebody and give them a compliment saying that, oh, they're so nice. Maybe they tell you something, they give you a compliment, you say, oh, you're too kind. You're being too generous with your words, what you're saying. Oh, you're too kind. Because again, if somebody says you're kind enough, it means that you have the sufficient amount. But in this case, obviously, you don't want to sell somebody that they're kind enough, because that could be taken as almost a negative, in which case you're saying, well, oftentimes you might not be very kind, but oh, you're too kind. It would be used when somebody is paying you a compliment and you want to say, thank you, like this person is very generous with their words. Oh, you're too kind. The next one, don't give him the keys. He's to drive. What do you think? A, old enough, or B, too young? Don't give him the keys. He's old enough to drive, or he's too young to drive. What would you say? So again, just trying to think of enough and too. Which one are we using? Are we using enough, which is that sufficient amount, the right amount, or too, which is more than what's needed? And in this case, again, that first sentence should really put it into context. Don't give him the keys. You don't want somebody to have that. Well, why? Well, somebody is B, too young to drive. He's too young to drive would be a reason why you don't want somebody to have the car keys. So excellent. Yes, Maria, Madi, Aline, Jose, Angela, Kareem, Esther, Aiden, perfect. You guys rock that one. So again, just to give you a little practice between using those words too and enough, and I told you that I think the grammar should be a little easier for you to follow, because too, you're talking about more than what is needed, and enough is that sufficient amount. So now let's make it maybe a little more challenging. I want to talk about some very useful phrases and expressions that use the words too and enough. So let's start with too. And an expression that somebody might say is too little, too late. And if you hear this, or if you want to use it in conversation, it means that there is not enough of something that should have been provided earlier. So let me give you some more context and talk about a situation in which somebody may say this. So the key here is about something that should be provided earlier. So for example, maybe I need help with cleaning the home. I need help cleaning the house, and my family is supposed to help me. And they say, oh, I'll be there, I'm going to help you, but they don't show up. So I have to clean the entire house all on my own. And then later on, my family, whether it's my wife, my mother, my father, they say, oh, I'm so sorry. I should have been here. I should have helped you. And I say, look, too little, too late. It's already happened. It's already ended. It should have been provided earlier. And in that case, you'd say too little, too late. So I think often people would use this expression if they're a little angry at someone, that they wanted help earlier, they didn't get it. Perhaps the person is apologizing and maybe you're not ready to forgive them. And you say, look, it's too little, too late. You should have been there earlier for me, but it didn't happen. So this is a good expression that you can use if you want to express that emotion that somebody should have helped you, they didn't, too little, too late. Or if somebody would use this phrase, to go too far, or you could also say to take something too far. The meaning is the same. And what you're describing is a situation in which that you're behaving in a way that upsets or annoys someone. And what I think of is perhaps you're teasing somebody and you're just joking around, and you continue teasing this person, and at some point it just becomes too annoying. And at that point you could say that this person, they have gone too far, or they have taken the joke too far. And typically, like I said, it happens when you're teasing somebody, or maybe you're arguing with someone, and then you say something that's really offensive, it's really bad, and then you say, oh, you've gone too far. You've taken it too far. And in which case they're saying that you've really upset me, you've really annoyed me, you've taken this too far. So if somebody, again, I think of a situation in which you're probably, it wouldn't be a good situation. Maybe you're arguing with somebody, and when you argue with someone, emotions, they can get the best of you, and you say something that maybe you shouldn't say. And in that case, the other person would say, look, you've gone too far. You should not have said that. It was inappropriate. You've gone too far. Or again, to take something too far, perhaps like a joke. You're teasing it, and it becomes, it turns out, it becomes a problem. So to go too far or to take something too far, all right? Let's look at the next one, which is if somebody says not too bad or not too shabby. I think many of you, you may be familiar with that phrase like, oh, not too bad. And they both mean the same thing. It's used to say that something is good. And I feel like you would use it in the context of maybe some work that someone has to do. And they're showing you the work, and they say, hey, look at what I've done. And you want to say that it's good. You're like, wow, that, not too bad. I'm impressed. Or you could say not too shabby. So if you don't know what the word shabby means something is low quality, that it's just bad. But in this case, again, if you say something, wow, that's not too shabby, it means it's good. But I'd also say it's kind of a surprising good, that you're surprised that this work ended up very well, and you're like, wow, wow, not too bad. I was not expecting this. So not too bad, not too shabby. You use this to say that something's good. Another sentence which I think is very useful is just when somebody would say, you can never be too careful. And in this case, you would say this sentence to express that you should do everything possible to avoid problems or dangers. So I think of somebody who might be a little more conservative, and they try to avoid problems, they try to avoid danger, and especially if somebody is asking them why, like, oh, why are you being so careful? And you can say, well, yeah, you can never be too careful. That you should always try to be extra cautious, avoid problems, avoid danger. You can never be too careful. So again, I think you would use this if somebody is more questioning you as to why you are being so careful. You could say this. You can never be too careful. It says your lesson is not too bad. Thank you. Excellent. I hope it's not too bad, not too shabby, that you guys are learning some new things. Even if the grammar was a little easier, maybe you're learning a new expression or two. So this is a good one. Say, you can never be too careful. And I think it's true. I think it's absolutely true. Aiden pointed out, yes, that I think in life it's good to avoid problems. Be safe. You can never be too careful. Especially like think about nowadays when you talk about the virus and wearing a mask. Somebody could say that definitely when you go shopping or something, you're outside, always wear a mask. You can never be too careful. So that's an example. And then now let's talk about some expressions with enough. Somebody might say this tautology right here. Enough is enough. So it means the same thing if you just tell somebody, hey, enough. But you could use this expression right here, enough is enough, which means the same thing. And basically you're saying that you want someone to stop. And if you want someone to stop something, you could either say enough or enough is enough. And I think you would use enough is enough when something is happening and it's bothering you and it continues to bother you, and finally you just want it to stop. You snap and you tell them, look, enough is enough. All right, no more. You need to stop what you're doing. enough is enough. All right, so this is an expression that you may hear from time to time. See if you can listen for it. Another one is this one. If somebody says, sure enough. And I think somebody may have asked about this expression earlier, which is why I didn't say anything, because I knew we were going to get to it. So if somebody says sure enough, it means as expected. And I think people would use this when they're telling a story. So let me give you an example. And you're saying that, well, you expected this thing to happen. So I could say that perhaps I have a dog and I left. And usually I would let the dog go outside in case they need to go to the bathroom, but I forgot. They were locked inside the home. And the dog was locked inside the home, and I got home, and sure enough, the dog peed everywhere. So in that case, I'm telling you this story, and basically I'm saying that something was expected, and sure enough, this thing happened. So we often use it when you're talking about some result that's happening, and you expected this result. You can use sure enough. All right, so all right, enough is enough. I'll never tell you this. Thank you, Lolly. Please say hi to me. Hello, Surrender Yadav. So let's look at another one. Another expression with enough is enough said. And this is used to, you're telling someone that you understand what they've said, and there's no need to say any more. And I think the context in which you would use this is that I think of somebody perhaps apologizing for something, that they're apologizing for doing something wrong, and you understand. And you don't need them to continue apologizing. You'd say, hey, like, look, enough said. You don't need to continue telling me this. I understand. There's no need to say anymore. Enough said. So I think of a situation like that in which somebody's trying to explain their situation, explain what they've done wrong. And then once that person understands, you could say, look, enough said. I understand, you don't need to say anymore. So I think these are some useful expressions just to review them, which I hope that you've learned something new from this. If it's like too little, too late, or, to take something too far, like a joke or perhaps an argument, and you cross that line, or to say something is good, you say, hey, not too bad, not too shabby. I hope you think of these lessons. You say, hey, Wes, wow, this lesson, not too shabby. Or again, you can never be too careful. You want to play it safe. Enough is enough when you want to tell somebody to stop. Sure enough, when you're telling that story, you're talking about some result that you expected, you could use sure enough. Or even enough said when you want to say that you understand, you don't need to say anymore. Look, enough said. You don't need to tell me anymore. So I hope you guys learned something new, whether it was the grammar. It's always good to practice. And if you guys do, if you enjoy what we do here at Interactive English and you want to support what we do, you can check out memberships or becoming a patron. We offer some cool rewards. Links are down in the description. It is our member patron community, which we love. And some of you, I see some familiar faces, members, patrons with me today. And of course, I am very appreciative of that, of all of you guys. You guys rock. So again, I hope that this maybe cleared up some confusion if you were unsure about the grammar, but when you're trying to use to or enough. Or it maybe help build your vocabulary a little, that you learn some new expressions when it comes to using those words. So again, thank you guys so much for joining me. Write to me in the chat, write to me in the comments once this video is posted. I love hearing from all of you. Let's see. Thank you. So thank you, Aiden. Sure enough, it was a great class. Thank you. Excellent. Nice use of the expression. Thank you, Aiden, Deepak. Can we say... Sure, I'm just reading this question. Can we say for sure in place of sure enough? No, in that case, if you want to say that something is expected, you'd want to use the whole phrase, like sure enough, something happened. Sure enough, there was some result. So you'd want to use both words, sure enough. Good question, though. Thank you, Sleepwalker, Madhi, Maziar, Lolly, Angela, Gertrudis, Andy, Rod. I saw you in there before. Yasmina, Ivan, thank you guys for joining me today. I hope that you, sure enough, I will be back next weekend with another live lesson. You can still attend that live lesson if you want to. It's not too little or late. It's not too little, too late to join that live lesson because it hasn't happened yet. And I'm just trying to give you a little quick review. All right, so enough is enough. I need to end this lesson. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will see you next time. So long.